Welcome everyone. Merhaba ve hoş geldiniz. My name is Bo Knudsen and I'm the Program Officer for Swahili, Portuguese, and Turkic languages with the CLS program at American Councils for International Education. Thank you for joining me today for our site-specific virtual pre-departure orientation, or VPDO, session for students headed to Baku to study Turkish this summer. I want to give you congratulations again on receiving the U.S. Department of State Critical Language Scholarship. This is an amazing opportunity for you to devote 2 full months to increase your proficiency in Turkish and experience the culture of Azerbaijan firsthand. The program is designed to challenge you while allowing you to increase your proficiency in Turkish and gain cultural understanding in an immersion environment over these 2 months. By the end of the program, you feel you have successfully completed both of these or made progress on each front, then we'll consider it a successful summer. In today's virtual orientation, we want to provide you some site-specific information that's going to help you get acquainted with the CLS Turkish program. We're going to review core aspects of the CLS program as well as discuss student preparation for the summer. We're also going to discuss topics CLS participants have found challenging in the past, discuss cultural factors, and provide you with an opportunity to start thinking about strategies for adapting to these challenges and cultural differences that we foresee coming our way this summer. We're going to talk through the academic program, language partners, host families, identity and diversity questions, health and safety issues, site-specific policies, clothing and packing, general preparation for the program, and then here's some advice from previous participants. Now, we're not trying to cover everything you need to know in this webinar, just some of the main topics that will help you start preparing. You're going to get more information in the next few weeks, including a participant handbook for CLS Turkish. Information will also be covered in more depth in the pre-departure orientation in Washington, D.C., and in your in-country orientation when you arrive in Baku. I'd like you to note any questions that arise during watching this video. Please note them. Just reach out to me by phone in the days and weeks ahead as you think about this information, digest it, and want to discuss it with me. We'd like to introduce you or reintroduce you to a few staff members in the beginning of this presentation. You might remember some higher level team members introduced in part 1 of the virtual pre-departure orientation. This is the most important person on our team on the DC side with our office program director, Jeanette Owen. Jeanette works with American Councils for International Education as the project director for CLS. She has worked her entire professional career in outbound language study programs and has worked with CLS since 2009. She has a background in Russian studies and linguistics. And you know me from my emails and our communication. Bo, I have been a resident director for the CLS program 2 times. I was also a resident director with Nestle Youth. I've worked with Russian in the past. And I will be working closely with your resident director and the Institute staff in Baku to make sure that everyone is informed about all of the important aspects of the program, are able to respond to inquiries and resolve any issues that arise. I'll be working with you pretty closely up until the point that you fly to Azerbaijan. When you are in Baku for the summer, your main point of contact will shift to the resident director. I will be in touch with you when it comes to forms, deadlines, and travel questions, and I'll be able to respond to your emails, but again, your main contact will be that resident director. I want to introduce you to some of the staff at the Azerbaijan University of Languages. The Azerbaijan University of Languages has hosted CLS since 2010. AUL is a university that prepares its students at the undergraduate, graduate level, and also does teacher training and professional development. It basically focuses on language, teaching pedagogy, and the humanities. The university has 3 campuses, 8 schools of study, and more than 5,000 undergraduate students. There's over 300 graduate students too at AUL. AUL is also home to the U.S. Embassy's American Center, which is an internet center and library that offers access to reference tools and research services The American Center is housed within the same campus as the CLS program's classrooms. AUL is a large and respected university in Azerbaijan, so we're in good hands with this partner while we're abroad this summer. Here are the staff members in Baku with whom you'll become acquainted in the initial first few days in Baku. Up left is Dr. Jala Garibova. She is currently a lecturer at Azerbaijan University of Languages. She has worked in the past as a vice rector. She recently did a Fulbright at the University of Indiana, Bloomington. Since 2010, Dr. Garibova has been collaborating with American Councils as Institute Director for CLS Azerbaijani. Since 2016, Dr. Garibova has been working as the Institute Director for CLS Turkish. She's also been supervising American Council's flagship Turkish program at Azerbaijan University of Languages. Dr. Garibova has coordinated various EU educational projects on behalf of Azerbaijan University of Languages and the Azerbaijani government. Bottom left is Ramiga Shirlaeva. Ramiga has been working with the CLS program since 2012. She has a lot of experience working with American students and CLS students. She'll be working mostly behind the scenes to support teachers and language partners and the academic curriculum. You'll also meet her during the in-country orientation, and we'll see her periodically throughout the program. On the bottom right is Jody Blankenship. Jody is the country director for American Council's Baku. She really is responsible for recruiting, selecting, and training host families, helping resolve housing issues. She has a wealth of experience on many different education programs in Baku and is a former Peace Corps volunteer in Azerbaijan that has a lot of really valuable cultural insights. So working with the CLS program will be a program assistant named Narmeen Zelani. Narmeen really will work to support all program logistics related to host families and will also support language partner coordination. You'll meet Narmeen in the in-country orientation as well. I'd like to introduce you to your resident director for CLS Turkish, Rebecca Barr. Rebecca will be your primary point of contact during the program and will meet you at the airport when you arrive. Rebecca's love for all things Turkish began when she spent a year as a Nestle Youth participant in Adana, Turkey, during her gap year after high school. She continued her Turkish language studies at Georgetown, and she was a CLS Turkish participant in Ankara in 2013. She has a passion for international education, having worked for several years in student development and study abroad, both in Qatar and in the United States. She's currently finishing up her master's in global studies in Germany and has spent the last 2 years living in Buenos Aires and Bangkok. She's looking forward to spending the summer in beautiful Baku with you and getting to know you as CLS participants. And she wants to note that she's always down to have a cup of chai or 5 and discuss languages, current events, books, travel, culture, and food with you. I want to start by showing you a typical daily schedule for a CLS participant. On program, you're going to be incredibly busy all summer. We say that CLS is an intensive language and cultural immersion program, and we mean that in every sense of the word. We wanted to show you the schedule to give you an idea of how little time you'll have, how little free time you'll have end up having day to day. As a CLS participant, you're going to wake up early in the morning and commute to AUL. The morning commute is going to be a big part of the day. No student should live longer than about 50 minutes from the Institute by public transport. Host families are all over Baku, and traffic patterns vary, but we do our best to ensure that no student will regularly have a commute longer than 50 minutes. From 9 to 1:50 p.m., you're going to be in language class, and during that time, there'll be a lunch break. Generally, students are responsible for providing their own lunch. The university does have a cafeteria that sells tea and snacks, but if you're looking for a more substantial meal, there's a few restaurants and cafes nearby where you can find a traditional lunch, traditional meal, and you should expect to spend about 3 to 4 manats in local currency on lunch. Language classes are usually broken up into pairs, so you would have 2 classes with each consisting of 2 45-minute. After you finish language classes, your afternoon schedule will vary throughout the week. Some afternoons you'll have mandatory cultural activities or local excursions. You'll be receiving more information about those excursions in country during your in-country orientation and during your pre-departure orientation. Other afternoons, you may have scheduled meetings with language partners. You may spend afternoons at teacher hours getting extra help related to your coursework. You may have some free time around the city to explore. But I want you to take into account your return commute to your host family as well, because you will be getting back to your host family in time for dinner. They will probably be waiting for you eat the evening meal. In the evening, you also have homework, but you're also expected to spend time with your host family. This may be at home, or they might have other plans. They might want to take you out to show you something, or eat out at a friend's, or explore the city with you. I want to emphasize that really, when you have no scheduled CLS activities, it may mean it doesn't necessarily mean you'll be spending time alone, or you'll have control over that time. If you need to spend some time alone to do homework or to decompress, it's important to be proactive and communicate that to your host family so that they know to give you a little bit of space. Otherwise, they might be planning your time for you. Also, want to add that it's just a great general idea to say yes to things. If your host family wants to expose you to new experiences or show you things, chances are that's a great learning opportunity. And although you might be tired or unsure about what is involved with that time or that trip or what they're offering to expose you to, it's a good idea just to say yes in order to get that new experience. So once you arrive in country, you're going to take a placement exam that will determine which class level you'll be studying in for the summer. Your OPI that you already took, the oral proficiency interview, and the level that you applied for CLS Turkish will not determine which group you'll study in. Now, the class levels will be somewhat fluid in the first week, as teachers might as teachers spend time with you, they may recommend a different placement. Or you may have some ideas about what level you can study at. The first 2 weeks will be an opportunity to discuss your level with your teachers. But I encourage you all to be patient when it comes to placement, as all participants are coming from different institutions with different levels of language knowledge. A student who identifies as advanced beginning from one university could be at a very different level than a student who identifies as advanced beginning from a different university. Levels of language instruction vary across different institutions in the United States, but AUL's teachers are pros at determining which course will be the best, which group will be the best for which student. You'll be working with the academic director, the teachers, and your resident director to find a class level that you feel comfortable in, but also challenged by. Important to be aware that everyone is at a different level, and there will be days where the information reviewed is already familiar to you, but new for the rest of your classmates. So we ask for your patience. All CLS students will take intensive language courses for 20 hours each week. These courses will develop your reading, listening, speaking, and writing skills and provide you with opportunities to practice them in appropriate contexts. You're expected to participate actively in your learning process, which means taking advantage of opportunities to speak, raising your hand and asking questions during class, and speaking up. There will also be, of course, differences in teaching styles in addition to expectations of higher participation from you. Repetition and drill exercises are commonly used methods of teaching in Azerbaijan. Teachers tend to model their approach to instructing students in the manner in which they were taught and in the manner which is common across the region. Teachers will model their approach also based on the structure of the Turkish language. Turkish is a very structured language, and it's highly predictable once you learn many of the patterns of grammar and suffixes and vowel harmony. So there might be a lot of repetition and drills in the initial period as you learn those and master those. You can also expect to have outside of class assignments, which may take up to 3 hours each night, including homework. It's important to remember that CLS programs select students from diverse fields of study and diverse degree programs. So you all will have very different interests. So we ask that you try to be respectful of your peers' skill levels, their academic needs, and their interests, while also pursuing your own. And don't be disappointed if you spend more time on general vocabulary or grammar concepts than you're used to in your US classroom. The goal of the CLS program is to help you master the language so that you can effectively communicate with people of other cultures. Throughout the summer, there may be a variety of situations that are not directly tailored to your own personal language interests, but we encourage you to keep an open mind. On the CLS program, language learning does not stop in the classroom. It will continue with your language partner, with your host family, and when you're out and about in the city. And this is going to be exhausting. You're going to be speaking and hearing Turkish 24/7 with your peers, language partners, host families out in the streets, everywhere. Using your language will have real-world consequences. You may order the wrong food at a restaurant or cafe, or take the wrong bus because of a language misunderstanding. This can be frustrating, but also a great opportunity to learn from your own experiences as you have them. Ultimately, it's important to remember that you might feel like you're hitting a plateau with language study, whether it's due to exhaustion or because you're struggling with a particular grammatical rule or concept. Please remember, you're not getting worse. It's normal for all participants to feel like they're getting worse during the program or not improving. But remember to push through it. And even if you momentarily forget vocabulary from week 1, you're still gaining knowledge and experience every day. We follow a language policy on the CLS program. All participants are expected to adhere to this policy, but for beginners, beginner level students, they do receive a grace period of 2 to 3 weeks, during which they may use English to clarify things or to get translation. They should still be speaking Turkish, but they have that grace period. Other participants will be expected to speak Turkish from the moment they arrive and from the moment they sign that language policy. You must speak Turkish in class, at the host institute, whenever you're in the halls or on campus, on all cultural activities and group excursions, with your language partners, with your host families, and when you're communicating with local staff. You'll have a weekly meeting with your resident director, which will be in English, during which time you can clarify logistical information about the program, discuss cultural differences or adaptation or any difficulties you might be having. And of course, if there's an emergency or something serious you need to talk about during the week, you can pull your RD aside and speak English with them, but just letting Rebecca know that you will be speaking English during that conversation in order to switch over. The language policy is taken seriously as a policy of the program, and as such, you'll be monitored occasionally by staff and by the RD. They'll be listening to your Turkish to make sure you're not speaking English. If they hear you speaking English, they'll talk to you and try to redirect you to Turkish. And if it's a continual issue, they might take you aside and have a chat and discuss how this is a continual issue and try to get you to adjust that behavior. We'll be discussing a disciplinary policy later on during the orientation before you depart, and also in country. However, basically, most of these adjustments can be adjusted and fixed by a small discussion reminding the student about the language policy. You'll have a language partner when you're in country. Each participant will have a different language partner. They will be university students, typically between 18 and 24 years of age. They are fluent in Turkish. Some of them will be students from Turkey. You will have time to meet with your language partner after classes. And the goal of this is really to get informal practice in Turkish in order to participate in some cultural activities that are sort of unscheduled or outside of the official cultural program, to learn possibly some slang, to explore the culture with your language partner. Your language partner might be able to expose you to some media, some different cultural resources in Turkish, and they can also join us sometimes on some formal activities like excursions. The language partner, you'll be meeting with them 4 hours a week, and the American Councils and AUL staff will help support and facilitate those meetings. If you're having difficulties meeting with your language partner, you will be in touch with them by text message, but you can also talk to your RD if you're having difficulty meeting with them. Azerbaijan is a multilingual society, and Baku is a cosmopolitan city. You will hear Russian, Azerbaijani spoken on the street in Baku, and you'll frequently have to redirect the conversation to Turkish. This is quite normal, and it happens in many CLS sites that are multilingual societies. It may be that Azerbaijanis will want to speak English with you when they see your backpack and your tennis shoes and your big American smile. This happens in monolingual societies too, when locals want to practice English. Most Azerbaijanis understand Turkish, and many speak Turkish because Turkish media, including news channels, soap operas, cable news, and sports channels, are popular and widely consumed in Azerbaijan. Our advice is to try and maintain perspective and stay persistent in speaking Turkish. People may try to redirect you to English or Russian. They may respond in English, Azerbaijani, or another language, but be patient, keep practicing your target language. Once you convey to them that you are in Azerbaijan to learn Turkish, they will be interested in who you are and why you're there. So use that opportunity to have that conversation in Turkish. Additionally, you might have to adjust your own expectations to be prepared for the challenges of learning a language in a multilingual environment. We recognize that Azerbaijan is not Turkey, and therefore the language learning process is going to have unique challenges. It may be difficult to find Turkish language materials or books, and it may be exhausting to constantly redirect people to speak in Turkish. But last year's participants made very strong language gains in Turkish. So we ask for your patience, flexibility, and realistic expectations of the language learning environment in Baku. CLS participants in Baku will live with host families. Living with a host family not only enhances your experience of studying Turkish, but it also gives you a unique insight into how Azerbaijanis live in the host culture. Host families are selected by American Council's Baku office, and they all live within a 50-minute radius of the Institute. All host families go through a pre-program interview, home visit, and a host family training. Some host families may also be visited by the RD during the summer when you are in country. This is usually random, and it's just designed so that we can do check-ins to see how the experience is going for host families and for you. In your home, you'll have a private room and will also be provided with a key to the house or a key to the apartment. Your host family will also provide you with breakfast and dinner on weekdays and 3 meals a day on weekends. The CLS language policy also applies to time with your host family. You should only be speaking Turkish when you're with them. Now, they have identified as fluent Turkish speakers. There may be members of the family who speak Turkish less, but you will be speaking Turkish with them all the time and be exposed to that. Yes, so here we have a former alumni ambassador with her Turkish host family. Now, I would say apartments are more typical for Turkish, for Azerbaijani host families, although we do see a single family home here. Life in Azerbaijan is very communal. You shouldn't expect to have a massive amount of time alone while living with the host family. When it comes to meal times, your host family will try to feed you a lot. Azerbaijanis pride themselves on hospitality, so it is considered polite to serve guests a second and third helpings at meals. Be direct and straightforward when you're full. If you cannot eat this many servings, or if you don't want any more, it's useful sometimes to leave food on your plate at meals if you don't want to be served more. Past participants have recommended eating light in the beginning of the program, so you don't establish a routine of eating large quantities and have to continue doing so. You should expect the same amount of time alone. You should not expect the same amount of time alone that you have in the United States. As I mentioned earlier, it's important to be proactive and communicate to your host family when you need time to do homework or when you need time to decompress, or if you're planning on having a Skype session with someone back home. All host families will vary. Some may have young children, some will be single family homes. No matter what, living with a host family is going to improve your language skills and your cultural knowledge. So try to pay attention to their routine and ask questions about their lives. Also, try to avoid comparing host families with other CLS participants, as it may create unnecessary tension among your CLS cohort. All families will be different and offer something unique. You just need to get to know them a little bit to understand what that is. Gift giving, as in many cultures, is really important in Azerbaijan. So modest and thoughtful gifts are a gracious way to acknowledge someone and a good idea for you as you arrive in Azerbaijan and meet your host family. We recommend bringing small gifts for host families and language partners. You may also wish to bring small gifts for teachers to give to them at the end of the program. Some ideas for gifts are things that you can do with your host family, like maybe a small game. Host families also enjoy gifts that represent where you're from. These might be items from your university or home state, or souvenirs that represent local sports teams. Other ideas include food from your area, such as maple syrup or Old Bay seasoning. Refrigerator magnets are always a hit as well. They're inexpensive and easy to carry in your luggage and will most likely stay in your host family's refrigerator for a long time. Not all gifts have to be from the United States. You certainly can purchase gifts once you arrive in Baku if you're worried about space. For more information on living with the host family and cultural norms in Baku, you'll want to look at your participant handbook, which will be sent out in the coming weeks. All CLS participants should be aware of the current territorial and ethnic conflict in the Nagorno-Karabakh region, as well as many of the prejudices that many Azerbaijanis have towards the Armenian government and towards Armenians as well. These topics should generally be avoided when talking to your host family or people out in the community in Baku. Since the early 90s, Azerbaijan and Armenia have been engaged in a conflict over the disputed territory of Nagorno-Karabakh. Both countries have accused the other of committing horrendous acts of violence. In Azerbaijan, the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict has a really important role in constructing national identity and will more likely come up in conversation during your time in country. I would advise being really discreet whenever you hear this brought up and not offering your personal opinions on this subject or asking too many probing questions. It could be misunderstood for insensitivity or inflame feelings among the people you're interacting with. In our experience, the best way to navigate this conversation is through offering condolences for loss of life during wartime. Again, more detailed information about cultural differences and polite topics of conversation are going to be included in your participant handbook, so be sure to dive into that. I want to preface this slide by stating that the topic of identity and diversity while abroad is a huge topic, and it impacts both your personal experience as well as the group dynamics of our CLS cohort. We're introducing the topic here, but there will also be more information on this topic in both your participant handbook and in the pre-departure orientation in Washington, D.C. When we think about identity and our study abroad experience, it's important to remember that we all have multiple layers to our identity. And some of these layers we're more conscious of when we're in the States, others will become more conscious of when we're abroad. When we think about gender in Azerbaijan and how it's perceived through an American lens, it's a common perception that Azerbaijani culture can be very patriarchal. And many Americans in Azerbaijan can be frustrated by social conventions where they perceive Azerbaijani women as not being treated on equal terms as men. It's always important to remember the local cultural context and the different sets of expectations when it comes to gender norms in Azerbaijan. For example, even if a woman has an outside job, they're often considered responsible for managing the household when they get home, doing laundry, taking care of kids, while those expectations might not be for the men or the husbands. There are, of course, exceptions, and you'll see some of those exceptions with your host families, but these are common gender norms and roles across Azerbaijan. While Baku is a cosmopolitan city where Turks, Russians, Georgians, Kurds, Southeast Asians, and Middle Easterners live, there is not the type of racial diversity that we are accustomed to in the United States or in the Western world. As a result, some students, particularly students of color, may receive more attention than their CLS peers. You may hear Azerbaijanis making comments about those with darker skin, both foreigners and locals. Students of color have reported receiving more attention, but that is often the result of lack of information or lack of exposure. It causes Azerbaijanis to try and interact with students of color. You may experience interactions that make you feel frustrated and uncomfortable, but we encourage you to talk to your fellow CLS peers and your resident director about your experiences. If you ever feel unsafe in these interactions, please contact your resident director immediately. The Alumni Resource Directory is a great resource as well for connecting with participants who might have had very similar experiences to yours as pertains to your identity, race, gender, or orientation. Most Azerbaijanis are Muslim, but the society itself is quite secular and very tolerant of other faiths. If you're looking to practice religion or observe religious traditions while abroad, please reach out to me pre-program, or you can also reach out to your resident director during the program or the institute director to find out about religious centers in Baku and where you can expect to find them. Azerbaijani attitudes towards LGBTQI individuals generally differ strongly from those in the United States. You may hear some Azerbaijanis making negative comments about this community. LGBTQI individuals do not often show affection in public in Baku, and they're often not open about their sexual orientation with strangers. We do not advise you to lie or hide your sexual orientation abroad, but we encourage LGBTQI participants to be guarded and cautious about their sexuality in conversation with their host families and language partners in the beginning of the program until you get a better sense of how they will respond. I also want to note that Azerbaijanis will ask more direct questions than people in the United States, and sometimes these questions may come across as rude or invasive or too personal based on American standards. You might hear questions of, why aren't you married? Or are you planning on getting married? Did you come to Azerbaijan to find a husband or a wife? These questions aren't necessarily considered rude in Azerbaijan, so be prepared for them, especially from your host family. Of course, in all these situations, it's important to maintain perspective. While these questions and attitudes might be jarring, you also will hear them in certain parts of the United States. It's also important to not be overwhelmed and frustrated with Azerbaijani culture as a whole or make negative generalizations. When you're feeling frustrated about your experiences, particularly with your personal identity, don't keep it to yourself. Discuss it with your peers, discuss it with your resident director in the weekly meeting if you feel it's appropriate, or with them individually if it's more personal. Your resident director and local staff are the people who really will help you work through these issues and these questions so that you have a comfortable and enjoyable summer and are able to succeed on the program. Down here at the bottom, there's a link to diversityabroad.com, which is an organization the CLS Program and American Councils works with. And they have a lot of really great resources on the very different experiences of students overseas on study abroad programs and strategies for adapting to cultural differences in order to really have the best experience on program and be successful. It is so important that you maintain your physical and mental health while on the CLS program. Living in a foreign country and participating in an intensive language program can be exhausting and really challenging, so it's particularly important that you take steps to take care of yourself. A big way you can do that on an everyday basis is by staying hydrated. You should carry bottled water with you, and you should only drink bottled water in country. You'll be purchasing this in grocery stores like Western-style markets or at more traditional markets of the street. You'll also drink boiled water sometimes in your host families. It's fine to communicate to your host family that you prefer bottled water and you can keep it in the refrigerator. It is very common for CLS participants to get sick while they're abroad because your body's adjusting to a new environment. To cut down on the probability or frequency of illnesses, we recommend that you only drink bottled water, you avoid raw fruits and vegetables if you haven't washed them, and we also advise not eating street food that's been out in the sun. You might be tempted by that shawarma if it's late in the afternoon on a really sunny day and you're quite hungry, but exercise judgment and remember that bacteria can gather when meats and foods are left out for a really long time. However, despite all your best efforts as a CLS participant, you should expect to get sick during the program. So we advise you to bring your preferred over-the-counter medication and be prepared for a possible visit to a health clinic. Your RD will accompany you on those visits to the clinic, and it's useful for you to know where the clinics are. Later on in the program, if you find yourself frequently going to the health clinic, useful to know where they are. It's useful to know how to ask for medications. In Baku, you should be prepared for very different traffic patterns and public safety issues related to traffic. The drivers in Baku don't yield to pedestrians, and sometimes those intersections can be scary places. There are underground underpasses for crossing giant intersections, which are common in former Soviet capitals. But you also might find yourself crossing very large intersections. So you should practice situational awareness and be very alert when you're doing that. Don't keep your head down looking at your phone. You should be attentive to traffic crossing those intersections, and you should also try to be cautious and, of course, never jaywalk. You also might find that out in public in Baku, the air quality can be bad occasionally, especially during traffic jams. This is really variable and can become more intense during very hot days. Baku is also a windy city, and as it's located on the sea, you might find that these pollution and kind of poor air can quickly come and go, which can be a good thing. You'll experience limited internet access and slow download speeds as well. So you shouldn't expect the same internet access as you have in the United States. There is a computer lab at AUL, which you're able to use. You also will be able to access Wi-Fi if you do decide to bring your own smartphone. I mentioned before that there are very high temperatures in Baku in the summertime, so you should be ready for that. You'll need to get sunscreen when you're in country if you don't bring it before the program. You also should be carrying bottled water with you everywhere you go, and if you find that wearing a hat in the United States helps you during very hot temperatures, it's a good idea to bring one to Baku. We'll be talking in more depth about maintaining your mental health at the pre-departure orientation and in-country orientation. Important to think a little bit pre-program about what helps you decompress and relax and deal with stress at your home university or in your life in the United States. And identify those things, those practices, and try to plan on ways that you might be able to continue practicing them in Baku during the summertime. Your host family will understand if you need some time alone to decompress, but it's also can be a really useful idea to have something practice on your own, whether it's meditation or yoga or some exercises that help you decompress every day. This can be a good thing to incorporate into your routine. You can expect, as I said, Western-style supermarkets, but you'll also be exploring traditional markets and bazaars in Baku. You'll find internet cafes across the city where you'll be able to find faster speeds of internet. There are modern medical facilities as well as more traditional health clinics and apothekas where it's really just a lot of over-the-counter medication available behind glass, and you have to talk to a nurse in order to request certain medications. It's important to remember, though, when visiting clinics and doctors and hospitals in Azerbaijan, that health is a cultural construction in many places. Although there are international standards for public health, the ways that people just talk about health and think about health really varies from country to country. So you might find yourself experiencing some of the particular concepts and notions of health when you're in country. Your RD and local staff will help you kind of work through these experiences and interactions. You will have Western-style toilets at AUL and also with your host family, but elsewhere in Baku, you might find yourself using Turkish toilets. Now this is it's low to the ground. It's like a hole in the ground with a porcelain base, and it involves squatting. So you should be aware of that, and that's something you'll be getting used to, and also possibly avoiding if it's not something that you enjoy. Okay, for general CLS policies, you've read the terms and conditions, and we do ask you to review them again before you come on program. They are available on the accepted student portal. You can also download them as a PDF. It would be really useful to have them on a flash drive or on your computer as you prepare for the program. As a CLS participant, you will also be adhering to local site-specific policies. Those site-specific policies include the language policy. It includes broadly US law and Azerbaijani law. It's important to remember that American citizenship does not exempt you from Azerbaijani law. And you'll be covering those at PDO and in country, any more specific laws that you'll need to know about. However, I can mention now that drug laws in Azerbaijan are more strictly enforced. Many of us are coming from states where marijuana has been decriminalized or made legal. We need to remember that even being around drug users in Azerbaijan puts us at risk legally. So it's very important to avoid those situations. And for participants who are under 21, they do need to follow US law and may not drink alcohol. This is strictly observed policy rule. Your visa on the CLS program may only be valid for the dates of the CLS program. We haven't received the visas back yet. There's a chance it may say 90 days. There's a chance it will only be for the duration of the CLS program. You'll find this out when you see your visa. If you're planning on staying in Azerbaijan longer with the 90-day visa, you'll need to leave the country after those 90 days. This is in the event that you waive your CLS return ticket or make different arrangements to change your return date. I'll talk about that in just a moment. In addition to the CLS organized activities, you may wish to travel independently on your free weekends on the program. All CLS participants are welcome to pursue independent travel that does not interfere with required program activities like classes or excursions planned on the weekend. You'll need to submit an independent travel form to your resident director at least 48 hours before your proposed trip for approval. This form will ask you where you plan to travel, how you plan to get there, where you plan to stay, and when you intend to return to Baku. You'll need to return to your host family by Sunday evening, dinner time, on all independent travel on the weekends. CLS participants are not permitted to travel outside of the host country during the program. You have a single entry visa to Azerbaijan, so you will not be able to leave the country during the program. Finalists will receive flight information a few weeks before they're set to travel. Some of you may have received some information already. Now, students may change their return date on their CLS ticket to their home destination, but they must do so directly with the airliner, and they must do so after arriving to Baku. American Council staff and the travel agency cannot be involved in making these changes. Because the tickets are purchased as group tickets, you won't be able to change them before the program starts. And once you are in country and you try to change your ticket, you may be asked to pay a fee to change your return ticket date. So be prepared for that fee. You're not permitted to make changes to your ticket during the PDO in the United States or before. Doing so can jeopardize the flight information for your CLS peers. Some of you have reached out to me about travel after the program in country. There are basically two ways you can do this. You can waive your return ticket back to the United States, or you can change your return ticket date. Under both of those alternatives, you would still need to follow the terms of your visa and not overstay your visa. This is critical because overstaying your visa can jeopardize our host institution and jeopardize our ability to work with them and their ability to get letters of invitation for foreign students. You'll be signing a host family agreement when you arrive to Azerbaijan as part of the site-specific policies. Basically, this agreement indicates that you agree to maintain a respectful attitude to your host family. Keep your room neat, be flexible and understanding of the host family, understanding of their customs, diet, and schedules, and inform your host family if you're coming home later than usual or will miss a meal, or if you're planning independent travel outside of Baku. You should also be prepared to do your own laundry in your host family. You should ask permission before inviting friends over to your host family, and We do not allow overnight guests in host families. In the classroom, you won't be able to eat snacks or use your cell phone, so you'll need to put that away during classroom hours. Water and soft drinks are permitted. It's a bit more formal in some ways than a US classroom, so you will need to raise your hand to speak, and you'll need to raise your hand and ask permission to leave the classroom. You will address your teachers using traditional terms such as bey or hanım. You'll need to come to the university in appropriate dress. We'll discuss this in more detail in the next slide and at PDO, but basically this means shorts that are not too short, or not wearing short shorts, and also not wearing tank tops or sleeveless shirts. We do not allow participation in demonstrations or political activities for CLS students on program. And sometimes this also means steering clear of those if you see them in public. Even though you might be curious, you can always look online later to see what they were or ask your host family what they were. We do not allow travel to Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic or Nagorno-Karabakh region. This is strictly prohibited for CLS participants, and we adhere to State Department warnings and restrictions for travel, which include these two places. You might find that there are other travel restrictions put in place during the summer. We will inform you of those as soon as they come up. At the present time, there are no others for Azerbaijan, but they very well may appear due to local conditions on the ground, political protests, or security concerns. So I want to share some clothing guidelines in general. We'll be sharing a more detailed packing list in the participant handbook and talking it through at PDO as well. But it's important now to think about packing because you'll be making decisions before you arrive and before you come to Washington. You'll need to be prepared for hot weather, basically, in Baku. Shorts and t-shirts are okay in most situations. However, it's important to note that in Baku, Azerbaijanis dress more formally in general than Americans. We recommend that women dress a bit more modestly than they do in the United States, or at least be aware that Azerbaijanis dress more modestly than Americans. So please keep in mind that we shouldn't be bringing shorts that are too short. Ideally, they go closer to the knee, and also we don't want to be wearing tank tops in Azerbaijan. This is also true for men. Men shouldn't be wearing short shorts or be wearing sleeveless shirts out in the city or to class. You might bring some in order to go to the beach at a certain point, but these aren't everyday clothes. You'll need to bring comfortable walking shoes as you'll be going on many excursions and taking part in many outdoor activities or physical activities. Ultimately, the best advice is to pack light because you'll be able to find clothing in Baku. You'll be able to explore clothing markets and find items that you might have forgotten once you arrive. So leave space in your bag. It's also a good idea to leave space in your bag for gifts and souvenirs for when you come back to the States. For pre-departure orientation, you'll need to have one business casual outfit. We'll be having representatives from the US Department of State join us at PDO, so please look smart for that meeting. You may also want to have these clothes in Baku in case you're invited to a formal event, such as a wedding. On the right here, we see this is a wedding picture of a couple that's wearing traditional dress and getting married. So if you go to a wedding, you can expect that people will be wearing really nice clothes. You should be able to at least have a dress shirt and pants, or for women, something a little bit more formal they can wear. You might also want to dress up a little bit for the closing ceremony at the end of the program. In general, it's a good idea to start off being a little bit more formal than informal. However, we understand that Baku is really hot during the summer, and air conditioners are inconsistently used because they're often perceived as causing illnesses or colds. Baku is becoming more of an international city, and shorts are gaining more acceptance in society, whereas in previous years, they were seen as a sign of immaturity. In our experience as a foreigner, it's okay to wear shorts, but keep in mind that how you dress can attract unwanted attention. One alumni noted in their post-program survey as advice for other participants: be professional in dress, don't be slovenly in your appearance or in your behavior, and Azerbaijanis will regard this more positively. So I wanted to talk through a little bit what you can expect in the coming weeks and months before the program begins. You've already taken your OPI, your oral proficiency interview. Please get in touch with me directly if you have not taken it already. You'll be taking an OPI also towards the end of the program in country in Azerbaijan. And these two scores will be shared with you following the program so that you can see your progress over the course of the program in oral proficiency. Soon you're going to be getting a participant handbook from us. We ask that you review that really carefully and also be in touch with us with questions. You're going to be receiving a stipend check in mid-May. In the email I'll be sending with you that accompanies the check, we will talk through all of those expenses that the stipend check is intended to cover. You'll be receiving flight information for domestic and international travel, or for some participants, train information. Please be in touch with the CLS program staff. Might be Jackie, or it might come from the CLS general account. If you have any questions or requests regarding that itinerary or concerns. You'll also be receiving hotel information. You'll be arriving the first night to PDO at the hotel. We'll have one full day of program activities and orientation sessions, and you'll be departing on the third day of PDO for Baku. You'll be receiving a CLS t-shirt at your PDO and possibly a smoke detector. I think actually we will be receiving our Turkish textbooks in country in Azerbaijan, but you might also be asked to help out by transporting some things in your bag with you at PDO. I might ask for some participants' help, but that would be optional, of course. And please don't forget to bring a business casual outfit for PDO. I wanted to share really quick some advice previous participants have had for CLS Turkish students. First is really put effort into getting to know Baku, where things are located, how to get around, where all the cool places are in the city that you enjoy spending time in. This will give you more flexibility when you want to do things with people, and walking around a city is a great way to get to know it that you don't get when you take taxis everywhere. Make sure you serve as an advocate for yourself. Be communicative, open, and honest. I think this is great advice. This will allow us to use our Turkish skills to feel a little more control over our experiences in country. Be proactive and open with your host family. Communicate with RDs, with your RD, with the local institute staff, and also with your peers. The more you communicate and use your Turkish skills, the more empowered you'll feel. You are on a mission. Focus on that language learning mission. Focus on socializing on those similarly, sincerely committed. Find a hobby or class outside of school that will involve you in the culture. Like a dance, music, or art class that exercises another part of your brain. Try to keep a positive mindset. Taking a break from chat apps or group messages was probably one of the best things I did. Distancing oneself from the 24/7 English is key to seeing real growth on program. Not every summer you will be on CLS Turkish, so spend as much time as possible making local friends. Okay, so we've arrived at the end of our VPDO. Please get in touch with me by email or by phone. If you have any questions that came up during this video, this VPDO, please reach out. We've probably already communicated by phone. You know that I'm available 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. So just do be in touch. There are additional resources that you can pursue now. You may join the CLS Turkish Facebook group. You can introduce yourself on that Facebook group. Most of the group, I think, has already joined. And also that Facebook group consists of alumni from previous years of CLS Turkish. The Alumni Resource Directory is a great resource for connecting with alumni who may have had similar experiences such as your experience on program. So please explore that as a resource. once we share it. We're updating it now for 2018 CLS Turkish participants. And you have already indicated, you've possibly already indicated your interest in one-on-one mentoring in the survey that was shared by Liz Sinclair, our alumni officer. But if this is an opportunity that interests you, you didn't indicate that in her email, please reach out to me and I'll connect you. We already shared a sexual harassment webinar that goes through our CLS sexual harassment policy and provides definitions. It's also a very useful general safety webinar, I think, for all participants, but please do watch it if you haven't already. This also goes for the ASPE webinar that goes over information related to your health coverage. So a little bit dry, but please watch it, as many of you will be using the ASPE policy during the summer. I want to thank you for your attention to this VPDO. Again, we're excited to work with you on the program, and please do be in touch with us with any questions that you want to talk through. We'll be sharing the CLS Participant Handbook soon, and we look forward to meeting you at the pre-departure orientation. Thank you, and see you soon.